Museums preserve history, but some objects seem to carry something darker. Antique dolls, cracked mirrors, and suits of armor are blamed for moving by themselves, whispering at night, or bringing bad luck. Visitors say they feel sudden chills, and lights have been known to flicker.
This box is used to contain evil spirits.
Correct. We don't know whether it's one or two or multiple, but we know at least there is a Dybbuk.
Can you define what a Dybbuk is?
In the Jewish faith, it's a spirit that has unfinished business.
Tour guides share stories that blur the line between fact and legend. Would you dare walk past one of these display cases alone? Number 12, the Goddess of Death statue. The Goddess of Death is a small limestone statue dating from about 3500 BC, also called the Woman from Lem. Archaeologists discovered her in Cyprus, and today she sits behind glass at the National Museum Scotland in Edinburgh, a quiet figure with a noisy reputation. The dark legend begins in 1878, when Lord Elfont bought the statuette. Within 6 years, every member of his household had died in strange, unexplained ways. That pattern, so sudden and so cruel, became the first ember of the curse. The statue passed from owner to owner, like a wicked heirloom. Ivor Minucci owned it next, followed by Lord Thompson Noel, and later, Sir Alan Beaverbrook. Each family experienced tragedy, sudden deaths, accidents without clear cause, and grief that seemed to pile on grief. When Sir Alan's sons watched catastrophe surround their family, they gave the figure to the Royal Scottish Museum, desperate to be rid of it. But the shadow followed. Shortly after the museum accepted the statue, the chief curator who oversaw it died unexpectedly. Newspapers feasted on the story, and gossip hardened into certainty. The idea of a curse spread, whispered in parlors and printed in bold headlines. Modern historians and archaeologists offer a cooler explanation. They argue the carving was likely a fertility idol, a symbol of life rather than death, and point to the statue's age and style as evidence of its original meaning. They say the string of fatalities can be explained by coincidence, rumor, and sensational reporting rather than by any supernatural force. Still, visitors pause at the glass. Some study the carved face like a puzzle. Others shiver and imagine the old stories coming to life. Whether you believe in curses or not, the little statue keeps its power as a story, a small, silent relic that carries a long and uncanny past. Number 11, the Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond is not just a jewel, it is a legend. At 45.52 carats, its deep grayish-blue heart has dazzled and haunted people for centuries. Admirers come for the size and the beauty, but whispers follow it, tales that call the stone cursed. Its story begins in the shadowed depths of India. Long ago, in the Koh-i-Noor mine, miners unearthed a great blue stone. Some say it was taken from the eye of a sacred statue, a theft that enraged a goddess. True or not, that idea lit the first sparks of gossip, an origin wrapped in sacrilege and warning. A French merchant named Jean-Baptiste Tavernier carried the gem west, and it soon took its place among crowns and splendor. King Louis XIV called it the French Blue, and later it belonged to King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette. Both were swept away by the violent tides of the French Revolution. Their fates fed the diamond's dark reputation as if misfortune clung to everyone who held it. The stone disappeared for a time and later reappeared in new hands. In 1912, American heiress Evelyn Walsh McLean bought it, bringing the gem into a life marked by sorrow. A son lost in a car crash, a daughter who took her own life, and a husband tormented by mental illness. The tragedies stacked like proof in the public imagination that the diamond carried more than sparkle. It carried ruin. In 1949, jeweler Harry Winston acquired the gem, and in 1958, he gave it to the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History. When it entered the museum's glass case, the cycle of private calamity seemed to end. Yet odd episodes clung to the tale. The postman who delivered the gem, James Todd, later was struck by a truck and his home burned. Small, eerie echoes that followers of the curse could not ignore. Beyond superstition, the Hope Diamond fascinates scientists. Under ultraviolet light, it gives a fleeting red glow called phosphorescence, a trait that sets it apart in the mineral world and deepens its mystique. Today, people press their faces to the museum glass, drawn to a stone that traveled from an Indian mine through royal courts and heartbreak to a steady display in a museum. Whether you call it cursed or merely unlucky, the Hope Diamond reads like a story full of beauty, mystery, and tragedy. Number 10. Great Bed of Ware. The Great Bed of Ware rests in a quiet room at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, but it is far from ordinary. Carved around 1590, the bed is enormous, roughly 11 feet by 11 feet and impossible to ignore. Visitors pause, lean in and take photographs, drawn as if by some curious gravity. Centuries ago, people claimed it could hold 4 couples at once, and that claim sealed its fame. The bed began life as a spectacle. An inn in Ware, Hertfordshire, wanted something bold to lure travelers, so they commissioned a large, richly carved wooden bed. It worked. People came from across the country to see it and to sleep within its massive frame. Many left their marks, initials scratched into the wood and red wax seals pressed into the posts and headboard. Those small acts of ownership survive to this day. Stories grew like ivy around the timber. One persistent tale links the bed to a craftsman named Jonas Fosbrook. Local legend says Fosbrook built the bed for King Edward IV, and that his spirit grew angry when ordinary guests treated his work like a curiosity. People began to whisper that Fosbrook's ghost would punish anyone who slept there. The ghost, the story goes, would pinch or scratch the sleeper or even throw the person out of the bed. Visitors who tried to sleep in it reportedly ended up shivering on the floor all night, expelled from the bed by an unseen hand. In 1931, the Victoria and Albert Museum bought the bed for £4,000, rescuing it from an overseas buyer and adding it to a careful collection. Today, the Great Bed of Ware is one of the V&A's best-known objects. Tourists admire its size and its carvings and study the old wax marks. The ghost stories continue. Whether you believe in spirits or not, the bed's history and the rumors about Jonas Fosbrook give the piece a strange, lasting power. People still visit, imagine the past, and wonder who or what might watch over that great wooden frame. Number 9. The Dead Man's Chair. In Thirsk Museum in North Yorkshire, a plain oak chair sits high on the wall. People whisper its other name, the Busby Stoop chair. The story behind it is old and chilling. In 1702, a man named Thomas Busby was found guilty of killing his father-in-law, Daniel Audy. The fight began over a seat at a pub. Busby strangled Audy after an argument about who should sit in her favorite chair. When Busby faced execution by hanging, he swore a curse on that chair. He said anyone who sat in it would die suddenly and painfully. For centuries, the chair gained a fearsome reputation. During World War II, local Royal Air Force pilots who sat in the chair before leaving on missions never came home. In the 1970s, a pair of pilots sat in the chair and later crashed into a tree on their way back. Not long after, a roofer and a delivery driver sat in it and died in strange accidents soon after. Frightened by the streak of bad luck, the pub landlord donated the chair to Thirsk Museum in 1978. The museum staff bolted it to the wall and raised it out of reach. They wanted to make sure no one could sit in it again. People still come to see the Busby Stoop chair. Ghost hunters and curious visitors travel to Thirsk to stand below the mounted seat and hear the tale. Yet furniture experts say the wood itself tells a different story. Tests show the oak was probably cut around 1840, more than a century after Busby's execution. That makes the chair newer than the curse's origin. Skeptics say the curse is a local legend built from a chain of unlucky events and a dramatic tale told again and again. The museum keeps the chair on display as a warning and as a piece of local history. Number 8. The Dybbuk Box. The Dybbuk Box is known as the world's most haunted object. That is how people began to talk about an old wine cabinet that seemed to bring nothing but trouble to anyone who owned it. The story begins in 2001. An antique dealer named Kevin Mannis bought the wooden cabinet at an estate sale. He later shared a strange tale. The box had belonged to a woman who survived the Holocaust. She had used the cabinet to trap a Dybbuk, a malicious spirit from Jewish folklore. Before Mannis opened it, the woman's granddaughter warned him never to look inside. Curiosity won. When Mannis opened the cabinet, he said he found a handful of odd items: 2 wheat pennies dated 1928, locks of blonde and brunette hair, a small granite statue with the Hebrew word shalom carved on it, a dried rosebud, a golden goblet, and a black candle holder. None of those things seemed dangerous, but the trouble began soon after. Manus and later owners reported a string of terrifying experiences. People said they had horrible nightmares. Some suffered strange medical problems like sudden welts and even strokes. Others heard unexplained noises, saw moving objects, and noticed shadowy figures. The stories spread quickly, and the cabinet's reputation grew. Writers and paranormal fans called it cursed or haunted. The tale reached a wider audience when it inspired the 2012 horror movie, The Possession. That film used the box's legend as its starting point and made the story even more famous. Eventually, paranormal investigator and television host Zach Bagans bought the original Dybbuk Box. He placed it in his haunted museum in Las Vegas. Today, the cabinet sits behind thick plexiglass as part of a locked and guarded exhibit. Bagans has shown it on his show Ghost Adventures and treats it as one of his museum's most dangerous items. Whether you believe in curses or not, the Dybbuk Box shows how a few objects and a few stories can become something more, a legend that keeps growing. Number 7. The Dark Mirror. The Dark Mirror sits in the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and Occult, run by researchers Greg and Dana Newkirk. It looks like a small, handheld piece of glass, black as night. People who study the strange say it is one of the most unsettling objects in the museum. Visitors who look into the mirror often report similar visions. Many say they saw their own face change, as if it aged quickly, rotted, or even became the face of someone who had died. These accounts are so alike that the mirror developed a dark reputation among ghost hunters. Physical sensations sometimes accompany the visions. People have said they tasted blood, felt mild electric shocks, or felt as if an invisible hand had grabbed them. A few left with marks or welts on their skin. The mirror gained fame when a previous owner became obsessed with it. That person watched the mirror constantly, so troubled that the family finally took it away. After that, the object passed to collectors and eventually to the Newkirk's traveling show. Scientists and skeptics offer another explanation. They point to the Troxler effect and pareidolia, which are tricks of the mind that happen in low light. When someone stares at a dark, blank surface, the brain fills in missing details. That can make a reflection wobble, warp, or look like a different face. For skeptics, this explanation is enough to account for the mirror's strange effects. Still, whether caused by the mind or something unexplained, the dark mirror continues to draw people in. Visitors leave uneasy, and the stories keep circulating. In museums like the Newkirk's, haunted objects such as this one become more than displays. They become mysteries people want to experience for themselves. Number 6. The Koh-i-Noor Diamond. The Koh-i-Noor, which means Mountain of Light in Persian, is a massive diamond weighing 105.6 carats. For centuries, it has been wrapped in stories of power, violence, and a feared curse. People say the diamond brings great success to its owner and great misfortune as well. Old legends claim the Koh-i-Noor can be worn safely only by a woman or by God. The story warns that any man who owns or wears the diamond will suffer a tragic fate. Because of this belief, the gem has only been placed in the crowns of female members of the British royal family. Historically, the diamond moved from ruler to ruler across South and Central Asia. It passed through the courts of Kakatiya, Mughal, Persian, Afghan, and Sikh leaders. Many of the men who held it later met violent ends, were betrayed, or suffered terrible fates. These events helped build the diamond's reputation as a cursed object. Today, the Koh-i-Noor is part of the British Crown Jewels and is displayed in the Jewel House at the Tower of London. It is set in the crown of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, and shown to the public. But the diamond is not just a jewel on display. Its history remains deeply controversial. India, Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan all claim the Koh-i-Noor should be returned, arguing it was taken during the colonial era under unfair conditions. The British government says the diamond was acquired legally after the Treaty of Lahore in 1849 and has refused to hand it back. The Koh-i-Noor endures as more than a sparkling stone. It is a symbol of conquest, loss, and ongoing dispute, and a well-known example of how objects in museums can carry heavy stories that reach far beyond their display cases. Number 5. Iceman. Ötzi is one of archaeology's most haunting discoveries, the oldest and best-preserved natural human mummy in Europe. He lived in the distant past, around 3,350 to 3,105 before Christ, and he met his end high on a mountain, his body frozen and sealed in glacier ice for millennia. In September 1991, 2 German hikers were crossing the Ötztal Alps on the border between Austria and Italy. What first looked like a rock turned out to be something far stranger, a human figure protruding from the ice. At first they feared a modern casualty, but the truth was far older and darker. This was a prehistoric man who would later be called Ötzi, the Iceman, returned from the deep past. Ötzi's body told a stark and cinematic story. An arrowhead lodged in his back suggested a violent ambush. His clothing, tools, and the eerie perfection of his preservation opened a window into life more than 5,000 years ago and gave scientists an unparalleled glimpse into the past. For archaeologists, he was a treasure beyond measure. Then, as if drawn into the same drama, strange tales began to swirl. Several people connected to Ötzi's discovery and early study died unexpectedly. A forensic pathologist who examined the body died in a car crash while traveling to give a lecture. Hen Kurt Fritz, the mountaineer who led scientists to the site, was killed in an avalanche while others with him survived. A journalist who wrote about the find also died young. Whispers of a curse gained momentum, echoing the old legends about King Tutankhamun's tomb. Scientists and historians examined those stories and found a quieter explanation: coincidence. The discovery set off decades of intense study, with hundreds of researchers, reporters, and mountaineers involved. When that many people gather around one famous object, some of them will die in accidents or from illness, but that does not mean the mummy causes bad luck. Today, Ötzi rests under careful care at the South Tyrol Museum of Archaeology in Bolzano, Italy. He lies in a specially built cold room that recreates the freezing, humid conditions of a glacier. That controlled environment helps slow decay and protect the Iceman for future generations. Ötzi's story sits where science meets legend. The facts come from careful research, and the rumors come from our human love of strange tales. Both elements shape how we remember this remarkable find. Number 4. The Annabelle Doll. People know Annabelle from movies as a creepy porcelain doll. The real Annabelle was a Raggedy Ann cloth doll. She looked harmless, a soft toy with button eyes and yarn hair. That made the story more chilling. In 1970, a 28-year-old nursing student received the doll as a gift from her mother. She kept it in her apartment with her roommate. Soon, strange things began to happen. The doll would appear in different places, even in rooms where neither woman had left it. Little notes showed up, written in a childish hand on torn paper. The notes said the same thing: help. The roommates became frightened and called a medium. The medium said the doll housed the spirit of a 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins. They then turned to Ed and Lorraine Warren, well-known paranormal investigators, for help. The Warrens heard the story and visited the apartment. They believed something more dangerous was at work. The Warrens thought the little girl's story was a trick. They said the doll was being used by a dark, inhuman force that wanted a human body. The Warrens reported that the doll even levitated during their investigation. To protect the family, the Warrens took the doll. They placed Annabelle in a special glass case at their occult museum in Monroe, Connecticut. The case was blessed and locked. A warning sign read, "Positively not open." Over the years, stories grew around the doll. The Warrens said Annabelle brought bad luck to people who mocked or challenged her. Some who laughed at the doll later suffered accidents or misfortunes. Whether you believe the story or not, visitors treated the doll with caution and curiosity. Number 3. The Cursed Amethyst. The cursed amethyst, known as the Delhi Purple Sapphire, is a famous gem shadowed by a dark reputation. People whisper that it is haunted. Long ago, during the Indian Mutiny of 1857, the stone was taken from a Hindu temple. Over the years, the gem passed from hand to hand, and wherever it went, misfortune seemed to follow. One tale names a British officer, Colonel W. Ferris. as the man who stole the stone from the Temple of Indra in Kanpur. After he claimed it, his life unraveled. He lost his wealth and his health. The amethyst then passed to his son, who met with terrible misfortune, and later a friend who owned the gem took his own life. In 1890, the jewel came into the care of Edward Heron Allen, an English writer and scientist. While the stone was with him, a string of strange and unlucky events struck his household. Terrified, he flung the gem into the Regent's Canal. Days later, the amethyst resurfaced. A shopkeeper had bought it from the canal dredger and returned it to Heron Allen. Convinced it held a dangerous power, he locked the stone inside 7 boxes, wrapped it in a silver ring shaped like a snake, and placed zodiac and protective plaques around it. He left a warning note begging that no one touch the jewel until long after his death. In 1944, Heron Allen's daughter donated the amethyst to the Natural History Museum in London. Today, the stone rests in the vault in the museum's green zone. Visitors still catch glimpses of it on display, and tales of its curse refuse to die. Whether you believe in curses or not, the cursed amethyst remains one of the museum world's most unsettling and talked about objects. Number 2. The Catskills Crone. The Catskills Crone is a small wooden statue carved by hand. Hikers found it in a lonely cave in the Catskill Mountains of upstate New York. 6 rusty nails were hammered into its eyes. A noose hung around its neck. The statue looked old and very strange. A friend of the hikers took the crone home. At first, nothing happened. Soon, small, odd things began to appear. The house smelled like a stagnant pond. Wet, muddy footprints showed up on the furniture. People in the house saw shadowy figures moving in the rooms. Objects began to fly through the air. Religious pictures and icons were ripped from the walls. One night, the family captured a video that seemed to show the statue moving on its own. The events grew scarier and more violent. The hikers handed the crone to 2 paranormal researchers, Greg and Dana Newkirk. They ran a small traveling museum called the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and Occult. The Newkirks studied the statue for 5 years. They took notes, filmed experiments, and watched the object closely. Their research pointed to old Slavic stories. The ropes and nails reminded them of rituals connected to Makosh, a Slavic goddess. The bindings on the statue seemed important to whatever force lived in it. As the activity worsened, the Newkirks decided the statue could not stay locked away. They believed it needed an unbinding ritual rather than more confinement. After a final ceremony, they returned the crone to the deep cave where hikers had first found it. They hoped that giving it back to the dark mountain would end the curse. The Catskills Crone later became the subject of the 2023 documentary, The Unbinding. The film follows the story from discovery to return. It shows how museums, even small traveling collections, sometimes hold things that are more than objects. Some items carry stories, and some, like the crone, carry trouble. Number 1. Robert the Doll. Robert the Doll stood behind glass at the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida. It was about 40 inches tall and looked like a child from another era. Visitors whispered that he was haunted. The doll once belonged to Robert Eugene Otto, an eccentric artist. Over the years, people swore that Robert the Doll changed his expression, giggled, and moved when no one was watching. Those stories traveled well beyond Key West. Filmmakers even drew on them when creating the chilling toy in the Child's Play movies, the one called Chucky. In 1994, the Otto family donated Robert to the Key West Art and Historical Society. Since then, he has sat in a glass case at the museum, a silent figure behind a pane of protection. A small ritual developed among visitors. Always ask Robert politely before taking his picture. Locals warned that anyone who disrespected the doll or snapped a photo without permission might pay a price. People blamed him for broken relationships, sudden job troubles, and a string of strange misfortunes, everything labeled Robert's curse. Around his case, visitors left messages. Hundreds of handwritten apology notes crowded the wall, each one from someone who believed the doll had touched their life with bad luck. Tourists sent birthday cards and letters from across the globe, drawn by the doll's growing eerie fame. Today, Robert is one of the most talked about haunted objects in any museum. Whether you believe the stories or not, standing before him makes many people hold their breath. The quiet room, the glass barrier, and the throng of notes turn an unassuming toy into a small, uncanny monument.